Tigers in turmoil. Look, a really disappointing start to the season. 5 straight losses to open their campaign. That's 2 years in a row that they've now started the season in that way. That's the first time since Newtown in 1968 and 1969. Just a really tough start to the year. How do we assess what these first 5 weeks have been like for the Tigers?
Well, it's hard to put into words. They looked like last night they gave up. Was it 28-0 at half-time? And the Broncos were just running without fear. Just for whatever reason, the combinations just aren't working. I don't know who to point the finger at because, you know, the easy one to point it at is the coaches. But you look at the coach, especially Tim Sheens, you know, his record over the years, and, you know, he knows the game better than anyone, whether it's management, whether it's recruitment, whether it's the players. But I wouldn't be pointing the finger at the coaches.
But when you're sitting there and watching a performance like that, what do you see as what is going wrong?
Well, the game started. Their first set of 6, they gave a penalty in defence to Brisbane coming out of trouble. Brisbane's second set of 6 coming out of trouble, they gave them a penalty. Their first kick down in the attacking zone, Brisbane trapped the ball and got the ball back. And then their next set of 6 down on the line, they kicked the ball dead and got 7 tackles. So they're straight away. Defensively, they can't keep up with teams, and they gave away 2 penalties coming out of trouble to Brisbane, which just took all the pressure off. And then when they got down their end, they can't execute and put pressure on teams because their first 2 kicks, they just duffed them. So on both sides of the court, they're failing. They just can't execute, and they haven't got either the fitness or the discipline to be able to put pressure on the other team.
When you lose 5 in a row to start the season, something needs to change. And I look at the positions that the players are playing. I don't think Adam Douei's a fullback. I think their best fullback is Dane Laurie. And I'm surprised that he hasn't been playing. He got a quarter of a game against Melbourne and he didn't even feature in the team list this week. So I think they got that wrong. But the biggest thing that has to change is the players' attitudes. If that doesn't change, it doesn't matter what number you're wearing on your back. And they need to have a shift in their mindset and play some tough footy because they're just not playing for long periods at the moment. And you need to in the NRL. Every team are tough to beat, and you've got to match that to start with before you can outlay any sort of talent.
If you were given the role of going in and saying, all right, another role, can you fix this? What would be the first few things that you'd do?
Well, you just get the basics right. You know, you complete your sets, you go and play tough, and you get your kick chase, all those little things in your game that give you a chance to win any game that you're in. Don't worry about the flashy plays. Get the basics right and put yourself in the contest.
Do you think they're putting the flashy stuff before the hard work?
Well, that's what was spoken about in the pre-season. How many passes they're doing at training and all the attack. They might have forgot to defend.
Well, let's have a listen to what Tim Sheens had to say about this loss post-game last night in Brisbane.
Lots of the clubs are still on 1 or 2 wins, and you could add 2 points for their bye. You know, so it's not that far away. I hope we'll win the bye anyway in a couple of weeks.
What did you make of these comments? I hope we win the bye in the next couple of weeks, because I have to say, you feel for Tigers fans that it's been...
That was a throwaway line.
I know.
It was a throwaway
I'm
line.
someone who loves a bit of humour,
Yeah.
but I don't know, as a Tigers fan, having...
Not the time and place?
Yeah, that's what I feel.
You know what, though? Tim Sheens is very experienced. What he's done now, he sort of makes sure he takes a little bit of the heat and maybe they can go away and practice and the players aren't overwhelmed by what's going on at the moment. So sometimes in coaching, especially when you're coaching throughout a whole season, it takes different avenues and angles to, you know, sometimes put pressure on your team or take pressure away. You know what? They'll be talking about Tim Sheens this week. Maybe this gives them a chance to go away and go, righto, let's get our head right around what we want to do.
And it publicly puts a bit of pressure on the players. You know, it's a tongue-in-cheek comment, but at the end of the day, it's putting a bit of pressure on the players. You got to play well, you know, otherwise the bye might beat you.
When you say Douei's not a fullback, do you think he's a centre?
I'd play him at lock.
Okay.
I don't know why. He's a big body. He can play with the football. You know, I'd play him at lock, but I don't think he's a fullback. Watching him positionally, he'd have to learn a whole heap. You know, there was a lot of tries from kicks last night, catching him out of position. He's trying hard. It's not Adam Douei's fault, but it's a position he hasn't played very much. I don't think he's a number one.
What about for a player, so say for Api Coruscant, Origin player, does playing in a team where you're struggling and you're not winning games, does that impact your chances of playing representative footy? And if so, how much?
Well, it does. It impacts if you're on your way up and coming through. If you're a player that's been there for quite a while, I've seen a lot of players in teams that are losing, they come into Origin, they just get excited. And, you know, there's been plenty of players in that situation. What you don't get to practice your craft when you're losing. You're sort of, you know, constantly trying to go back to the fundamentals like Billy was saying, and your team's trying to get the basics right. So it's hard to improve your game, but you don't lose the energy if you come into Origin. You normally get a pretty bubbly person because they're coming in there associated with sort of people who are winning and, you know, great players.
And they've been there before.